conferinței noastre.
Dear colleagues who attend our conference,
eu, în primul rând, vreau să mulțumesc pentru toți că ați avut răbdarea și atitudinea să veniți aici în Chișinău.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you that you have the patience and the courage to come here to Chișinău.
Noi astăzi deschidem o nouă tradiție a conferinței noastre.
Today we open a new tradition of our conference.
Astăzi noi, pentru prima dată, o să mânăm diplomele pentru tinerii cercetători.
For the first time in our tradition of conferences, for the first time we will just hand a diploma for young researchers.
Deci, eu am o mare plăcere, spun că președintele Comisiei, domnul Fomin Vladimir, și împreună cu Comisia în care a intrat în Comisie domnul Mănaico, deci domnul Sachi din Iași a intrat Venstiuc, deci au analizat mințios toate prezentările tinerilor. Tinerii până la 35 de ani.
The member of the commission just were nominalized. They analyzed very carefully all the presentations, all the papers of the young researchers. So the young, it means below the age of 35.
Deci eu dau domnului președinte certificatele și începem de la locul 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here, the chair of this jury, and I would like to reiterate that we were 5 persons, including Professor Kevin Korchova, Professor Liliana Restic, Professor Konstantin Poliste, and Dr. Eduard Mănaico. The third place is awarded to Mr. Alexander Serekov.
Din numele Comitetului de Organizare îi se mânează și un premiu bănesc, ca să fim mai aproape de Europa, bani europeni.
Second place has been awarded to Miss Morina Daniela Cojucaru.
România, Iași. Eu ce bani?
And now the first place has been awarded to Miss Tatiana Mankova.
Universitatea de Medicină, după câte știu eu.
At this point, we would like to wish to our awardees and to all other participants who have represented really excellent work, much further successes in their scientific research, in their life. All the best to all of you.
Deci, continuăm plenarele noastre, ultimele plenare. Avem două plenare. Că domnul Golubov s-a întâmplat ceva acasă și n-a sosit. Deci, o să conduc această sesiune, domnul Todor Bălarnic. Ok.
So we have two plenary sessions, as Professor Șonte just said, due to the fact that Professor Golubov was not able to be here. So the first presentation is by Professor Vladimir Fomin from Germany, representing Leibniz Institute for Solid State and Materials Research from Dresden. So dear Professor Fomin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to ask you whether you can hear me or not. If you cannot, then I will take the microphone. Don't need it. Thank you very much. I return it to the chair. Second, I have a great pleasure to express my cordial thanks to two co-chairs, Professor Șonte and Academician Tighineanu, for inviting me as a tradition already over practically all conferences of this cycle, and I would like to wish a nice continuation of this tradition in the future. Now I return to my presentation. It will be a little bit more general than usually. I would like to talk about basic sciences for sustainable development, using as a study case three-dimensional nanoarchitectures, a novel class of materials. First of all, I would like to recall what are the global goals for sustainable development. I think you have all seen it, but these are goals elaborated by UNESCO and approved by United Nations. They indicate the major goals for mankind into a better future. And I think that our conference, which is already steadily approaching its finish, it was about many of these goals in very practical sense. And I think here what concerns environment, good health and well-being, etc., etc. These were the key topics of all our discussions, and I will give certainly only a few examples. But in the sense of presentation of yesterday, I would say it's a complementary approach in another place towards the same important goal of the humankind. I will give a little bit idea of advanced 3D nanoarchitectures and give the following examples: photonic and thermoelectric materials based on those nano architectures, superconductivity in 3D nanoarchitectures, and self-assembled catalytic micromotors, which embrace really very rich area of fundamental and applicative studies, but we will include very specific biomedical applications. I wanted to be interesting for the whole audience here. And the remediation of polluted water which is equally important in order to have a sustainable development of the humankind. Unfortunately, my time is so limited that I will be able only to name these achievements. If you have any questions, please ask me today or later by email. It's very easy to find my email. I will be really keen to continue this discussion in depth. But three general sources for you I would like to indicate already now. It's a second edition of my book, Physics of Quantum Rings. Nanostructures which have a great potential, not yet fully exploited. And self-rolled micro and nano architectures. This is a more recent book, and I think the main part of my presentation today is related to this book. But the third book has not yet been published. This is something new, and I would like simply to attract your attention that in October this year there will be published a second edition of the Encyclopedia of Condensed Matter Physics. The first was more than 20 years ago, and Elsevier decided to renew this edition, and there are a few chapters devoted to 3D nanoarchitectures. Recall, Encyclopedia, Elsevier, and you will find it in internet very easily. In fact, 3D nanoarchitectures are two-dimensional manifolds, like membranes, which have been somehow processed in order to form three-dimensional objects. Nowadays, there are a few beautiful experimental approaches which allow to fabricate, to produce these nanoarchitectures. And only a few. One of them is self-rolling. It's indicated here, and I devote short time to explain you. Take a bilayer of membranes which are extremely ultra-narrow. They consist of different crystalline materials, and they put on the third layer, which is called sacrificial layer. If we remove the sacrificial layer by etching off, the first two occur in a non-equilibrium, in a strained state, because they try to adjust their crystal lattices and they cannot. And they must resolve the strain by some deformation. Deformations can be different, but under some conditions, this deformation is like shown here, rolling. And you can roll it by 180 degrees or 360 degrees, or you can repeat it 10 times. And what will you have? A Swiss roll. We all like Swiss rolls, but this is a new material whose properties I will briefly discuss. And it has a shape of a multi-layered radial superlattice. We know that superlattices have great potential for future technologies, electronics and biotechnologies, but these are rolled superlattices, and due to rolling, we acquire some new properties. Another very interesting approach is writing these structures using focused electron or ion beam. You put in a chamber some precursors and you illuminate them with a focused electron or ion beam. And in the place of the focus, there occurs a chemical reaction, and the sediments follow the shape of the focus. So you will control it with computer, but you can give very complicated shape, and you will get the structure. After all, it's solid. But for example, we can get such a spiral, helix. Of other topics, I would like to show you that in the chamber of niobium and selenium, again under certain conditions, this chemical reaction occurs which leads to the formation of triselenide, niobium triselenide. But this material has very low synchrony, it has very low class of symmetry. And in the chamber there are spontaneously formed balls of selenium. And if these new crystals touch these balls, they start to spool. And during spooling, because of low synchrony, they turn around their central line. And everything further depends on the radius of this ball. If it's small, you will have a ring. If it's large enough, you will have a quantum 8. It will encircle the ball 2 times. But if it is in between, we will get a Möbius band, which you all know from the school, but it can be now produced in the laboratory. And this is a micrograph. This is not a theoretical or some artificial intelligence made picture. It's a micrograph. Naturally, this attracted our attention to such objects, and I will speak today about optical resonators, which have the shape of a Möbius band. Very easy approach and not completely correct, but to give you a fast touch. If you have a ring, there should be an integer number of wavelengths of light in order to get a constructive interference. You cannot get any number of wavelengths, only an integer number. And such waves exist in the ring, like resonator. But if we go to the Möbius here, we have already twisted it by pi, by 180 degrees. And therefore, the constructive interference occurs when the number of the wavelengths is half wavelength, is odd. One term is already assumed by topology. We had yesterday a talk concerning topology, and this is a practical implication. What can we do of such theoretical considerations? No good. Here in the terms of electric field, in a ring, the vector of the electric field returns to its original position, but in a Möbius ring, after the whole roundabout, it changes its direction. That was our idea 10 years ago, and we wanted to check it experimentally. Is it good or bad? But it took 10 years to check this idea, what the Möbiosity of resonator brings in. And we we have, I would say, where is it? Yeah, we have published it, it's somewhere in the very beginning, yeah. We have published it this year in Nature Photonics, very recently. What is interesting? The real structures which follow this Möbius procedure, they have thickness. And because of that, they are not Möbius bands. They are three-dimensional. And because of that, there develops an elliptically polarized light in the thickness of this resonator, which can be checked by optical polarization measurements. So this is the Möbius ring. These are some supports, and dependent on where you illuminate it, here it's vertical or here horizontal, you will test either a flat part of the Möbius band or a narrow part. This is again a scheme how it was done, and this is a result. And the result was remarkable. If we start with linearly polarized light, then in ideal Möbius band, it would be linearly polarized always. This central part in the angular diagram would be point in the center. But if we take into account the final ratio of thickness T to width, we have such a polarization diagram which shows that this light is elliptically polarized. We can extract the ellipticity from these measurements, and then it occurs that if the thickness is very small, we keep linearly polarized light which changes together with the direction of the Möbius band. If it's 1, we do not have a Möbius band anymore. We have a donut. Donut has no nebulosity. But in this intermediate regime, we have a prominent ellipticity. And these are experimental data obtained, as I showed. Beautiful hymn to Möbius. We have extracted the geometric phase which occurs in this resonator, and it occurs a function of the speculation. Usual knowledge, common knowledge, is that it's either 0 if it's a donut, or it is 1. But in the reality, we can control it, and I think it was our long way to the experimental confirmation, and this black rhombs are experimental data. Really, by changing geometry, we can change very phase. So topology can be manifested differently depending on the geometry. And I think at this point, I must tell you the most important message of my presentation. Usually, as we heard, and also during this conference, when one speaks about topological effects, one means topology of the band states. It's in K-space. It's states of electrons or holes, or light if you like. But we have below this considering the topological effects which arise from geometry, our material is topologically trivial. Niobium is topologically trivial material. But due to this very special formation of a micro or nano architecture, this has a size of 1 micron. We arrive at such manifestations which are topologically determined. But this topology is not a topology of the material, it's topology of the structure. So, this is the most important statement. Then, depending on when our chair stops me, I will give you more examples of this. But the main statement has been already done. We look for new properties of materials due to their nanofabrication, due to formation of nanoarchitectures. And certainly, from the point of view of sustainable development, if we want to use these resonators in order, for example, to detect some light frequencies, we can control the frequencies in this case simply by making resonators of different thickness. It's very feasible. It was done. I must repeat that it took us 10 years. Nevertheless, we have done it. Good. Another similar object was conical nanotube. This is another resonator. It was made of silicon, and the second layer was silicon dioxide. And as a result, we obtain again experimentally such elliptically polarized light which changes its angle and eccentricity when it goes further and further. But an attempt to explain it led us to extremely advanced mathematical notions. It's a non-cyclic optical geometric phase. It does not return to the same value after light travels once. And it's non-abelian evolution. Non-abelian means that two polarizations of light, when they propagate, they cannot propagate independently. And you cannot find a frame in order to disentangle them. They have a very deep disentanglement. And this notion is very fashionable in the modern cosmology, but here you have this same phenomenon on the desk of our colleagues, experimentalists. Okay, next. Thermoelectric materials. Also for the solving of energy problems, we must have a very sparing attitude to the energy. And for this, we need good thermoelectric materials. And it occurs that this multi-rolled nanoarchitectures, they are very good candidates for thermoelectric applications with good figure of merit. This is important. With a bad figure of merit, we have many materials, but we must have a good quality. And this is an explanation how it was done. And this is an experiment, and what is most important here, that the thermal conductivity due to phonons, due to the lattice, it strongly depends on the number of windings. And if you have 5 windings, the thermal conductivity can be 3 times smaller than with 1 winding. Isn't it remarkable? You have the same material and the same conditions, but you roll it up. And by doing so, you change the physical parameter, the materials parameter, by a factor of 3. It's not 3%, it's a factor of 3. Certainly, there is still a very big way towards the applications, but such micron size objects can be very, very well competitive with our suggestions to use, for example, the heat of engines in the car in order to supply it with thermoelectricity. Because we can control the thermal conductivity and thus increase the figure of length. Now, superconductivity. It's our current topic. These are experimentally done nanoarchitectures. I would like to emphasize that I am not speaking about something that can be very, very attractive but does not exist. All of these materials, new nanostructured materials, they exist already. And the corresponding theory for nanotubes is here. What is most important, that if you have such a nanotube, but it has a slit, it is not a full tube, it's a rolled up tube, and you have a slit, you have an opening, you can use it in order to attach two contacts and to send a current from another source. And if the magnetic field is in this case orthogonal to the axis, then we have something remarkable. Probably many of you remember that a superconductor in a magnetic field, there develops a screening current, we can call it Meissner current, which expels magnetic field. But here we have 2 such currents. One in upper half and another in the lower half. And this is topologically new situation. And we will see now the results of our theoretical analysis that due to these 2 loops of screening currents, there develops very non-trivial motion of vortices. Right-hand side is a membrane planar, and the left-hand side is the surface of the nanotube, which is again devolved. So this is simply a way to represent nanotube. I hope it will work now, but let's check. Yes, the vortices in the tube move in the opposite directions, while they move always in one direction in the planar field. And about this, again, I can speak a lot, but these are not abricosal vortices. Abricosal vortices are in a 3D, in a big sample. These samples have maybe 50 nanometers thickness. They are ultra thin. Therefore, at the distance of 1 micron or 2 microns, they do not feel each other inductively. They do not interact. Therefore, they cannot move like here in the opposite direction. And this was the starting point of our investigation, which led to a number of beautiful conclusions. Okay, this is how topological transformation of screening currents leads to different patterns of vortices. And this is certainly a way to use it as a gate qubit. If we have logical qubits which cannot transfer information from one to another one. And this is the third one, which is not in a resonance in energy, is this transfer of fluxons, if you like, units of information, qubits. But if we add here our tube, this tube has vortices, and these vortices can interact with the central gate. And then because of that interaction, this energy can be tuned. And it can be in the on state when we have a resonance, or in off state when we are off resonance. So this is a suggestion of a logical gate. I never speak about quantum computing because it's too complicated story. But this is a way of quantum handling the information. More recent efforts were related to increasing transport current. Again, I hope it will work now. Yeah, so at low current, we have one vortex nucleating, moving, denucleating, very nice periodical process. You see it yourself. Yeah? It's Fourier spectrum of the generated voltage. But if we increase the transport current, there are many more vortices. And look what happens now with them. One is nucleating, another has not yet denucleated. We have a more complicated spectrum. And in this way, we can control the characteristic times, time of flight and the period of nucleation, and if you like, this is a quantum clock. If in your system which you will produce, you need a source of frequency, these small tubes are a very stable source of frequency, or more than that. Increased magnetic field. I am afraid here we will need, no, this will not work without touching the screen. I will not touch it to save time. So if magnetic field is relatively low, we have two chains. But if it's high enough, we should have two chains. And in between, we have something between 1 and 2. How can we realize this? This is a strange situation. It is realized by bifurcation. The vortices nuclei in one point and move in one chain, but then at a certain point they split in two chains and further move with different velocities. So we have already a source of two frequencies in one tube. Beautiful. And this is very recent results which show that we can go still further. When we further increase transport current, we can have sparse vortices, vortex chains. These are bifurcations which I showed, but still further with increasing magnetic field. We can have trifurcation or quadrifurcation or multifurcation, where the vortices move in different chains. Certainly the spectrum is extremely rich, and we can have frequency locking when we apply transport current modulation. We can reach chaotic stadia here, but we can fight this chaotic stadia when reducing the size of our tubes, and it's all much more attractive for possible applications than in planar structures. We have many more frequencies here involved. No good. Now I understand that my time is practically over, but I will name a few further results. Only name. This is a discovery of transition between vortices and phase slips. When we have spontaneously generated vortices and vortices which move with frequency which is 3 times higher than in normal case. It depends on switch on rate, and because of 2 possible states we can see hysteresis. We can optimize the hysteresis in this system. What is hysteresis? It's a way of magnetic memory. So we have it at the nanoscale. Helical coils were first experimentally investigated, then in parallel theoretically. This is the first bolometer, and this is resistance as a function of current, experimentally revealed in Spain and interpreted in terms of occurrence of phase slips. We added modulation of current and obtained a lot of new topological defects like azimuthal phase slips which never occur in planar structures. We can control the frequency content of the Fourier transform. We can consider here self-assembly catalytic micromotors. We make a holistic theory of all possible mechanisms of their motion. They were proven to be extremely useful for biomedical applications because they have the same diameter as sperm, and they can be, and they are used for artificial fertilization, and they are certainly magnetically driven micromotors for microsurgery, diagnosis and therapy, sensing, even small tumor ablations, delivery of molecules, drugs, and here in collaboration with our colleagues in the group of Professor Tiginianu, we were considering arrays of titanium O2 nanotubes. They were produced by another approach, not by ourselves rolling, by electrochemical wave, which has been developing here in Chișinău, now in the Technical University. And they seem to be very promising as being powered by photocatalytic reactions. So you illuminate it and they move. And why it is necessary? Because our tubes were shown to be very useful for remediation of polluted water. This is a paper 10 years ago which has the highest number of citations by some reason. So I consider it as one of many, but it occurs to be very interesting. Namely, if you have a tube and it moves differently, due to friction, due to viscosity, it brings liquid around it in motion. And if the chemical reaction depends on the stirring of the liquid, we are producing this stirring. So our nanotubes are spoons. They can stir the liquid, and by this they increase their chemical reactions. At this point, I want to tell you one take-home message. The 3D nano architectures have really great and brilliant future, in my opinion, and I think they are worth of further investigating. These are our collaborators really from the whole world, but I would like here to emphasize Ion Tiginianu, Mikhail Naki, and Igor Bogush. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for a very interesting and dynamic presentation. So now the paper is open for discussion. Question, please.
Very impressive results. How did you synthesize the review spend? How did you synthesize the review spend, which you showed at the beginning?
For the experiment?
Yes.
Very easily. It's 3D printing. Because that spontaneous synthesis, it requires very, very complicated technology. But nowadays, 3D printing is very, very common. It's photoresist, which was 3D printed.
But the dimensions were the range of
Micron.
Micron.
Micron, no.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned that nodules, which were self-organized, it was in sub-micron regime. And those resonators which we measured, they certainly were significantly above 1 micron, but they were in micron regime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Fomin. And now I would like to invite the next speaker, who will present us the evaluation of health technology in the Republic of Moldova. So, Professor Artur Buzdugan. The microphone, and then I will change it up your slides.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Our presentation with Professor Schunter is rather different from the previous presentation. It's not about physical process and the nanostate, for example. It's not about the elaborated different apparatus and devices used in the medicine or biological sciences. It's about development, health technology management in the Republic of Moldova. And very short presentation, because I understand that was 3 days of hard work during the conference. Was also 3 evening different ceremony with discussion and the exchange of information, also on the topics of the conference. So, of course, obviously, the knowledge of the highly qualified medical staff, the appropriate medical treatment play a primary role, but the maximum efficiency in the treatment can be achieved only with a fully functional equipment. There is acceptance by all involved actors in the process that the proper management of medical technology, including the physical environment, in which health care is delivered, as well as information systems that support health care delivery. And it is essential to obtain quality medical services at affordable and sustainable prices. Health technology management follows the entire medical devices life chain from the acquisition, procurement, training policy, maintenance, as part of the efficient and cost-effective health care sector. Many countries regulate medical devices and equipment by different law or regulation. This legislation concerns safety and security and efficiency. That is, that the risk of technology is accepted by all and that it actually does what it's supposed to do. So, in the past, it was necessary, first of all, in Moldova to agree the societal impact of health technology management sensitization of the societal impact of health technology management and of the decision-making authority, attracting consultants and external assistance projects, and finally the development and implementation of a regulatory framework and the necessary infrastructure, including qualified human resources, of course. During attracting external advisory and project, with the support of Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation through the perioada and remote project, was done the procedure related to medical devices management at the hospital level fully analyzed. The necessary set of procedure was also defined, and the model of the procedure for the management and administration of medical devices was developed. These were initially implemented in 5 pilot medical institutions, continued through the JICA project to improve the management of medical devices, with contribution of Professor Șontea from Technical University of Moldova, who also took part in this project. Additionally, was elaborated and published the guide regarding the establishment criteria of such departments, their roles and responsibility in the country. In the guide, it is important to mention that the condition for ensuring the functioning of medical devices and the delivery of quality medical services was done by implementing complex management of medical devices. Medical institution, in this case, must consider the whole cycle, life cycle, maintenance cycle, and management of consumable and spare part cycle together. Of course, before starting the health technology management in the Republic of Moldova, there are legal framework, but it not correspond to European Union law. From this point of view, with the consult of external expert was upgrade the Moldova legislation regarding medical devices and elaborated the sub-level legal document like government decision on regulation of the condition for introduction of the market of different type of medical devices. Also was elaborated departmental regulation on marketing of medical devices, procedure for notification of medical devices bearing the European Council mark, and the regulation or registration of medical devices that do not have the European mark. The new legal framework in Moldova regarding use of medical devices established very transparent the objective, the duty and the responsibility of each part of infrastructure from the country, of Ministry of Health, Medicine and Medical Devices Agency, presently reformed the National Agency for Public Health, of the Center for Centralized Public Procurement and Health, and it's very important that was mentioned the role of entrepreneurs. And was indicated that entrepreneur must employ at least one specialist in the field or one bioengineer. Recently, in this law, in 2018, by Ministry of Health was introduced a new important point regarding the role of Technical University of Moldova, especially of National Biomedical Engineering Center, headed by Professor Șontea, regarding the training provided in the biomedical engineering field. Considering the technological aspect of medical care, the role of the clinical or biomedical engineer is an indispensable part of the quality chain of the medical act, along with the medical staff, of course. And this way is evident necessity and formation of the institutional framework for the training of specialists. As a result, the establishment of the biomedical engineering specialty at the Technical University, level 1, followed by the level 2, master courses, and level 3, PhD doctor students. Evolving trend in the country in the labor market and the employment of engineering personnel within the health system, the Ministry of Health requested in 2017 the Technical University to double the number of trained biomedical engineers. It was mentioned earlier in this presentation, the National Biomedical Engineering Center is part of the Technical University and is a part of undergraduate training and is responsible also for postgraduate training and contribute to implementing of medical devices management in the country. Professor Șonte initiated the foundation of Biomedical Engineering Society from Moldova, as well as its accession to the European Alliance for Medical Engineering and to International Federation of Biomedical Engineering too. In the field of sustainability of health technology management, biomedical engineering being as an interdisciplinary field, develop and promote in collaboration with doctors, physicists, biologists, and chemists, engineering innovation and new medical technology. Biomedical engineering means not only the production of high-performance biomedical equipment, but also safety and security for the patient and medical staff. Thus, the use of equipment maintaining according to the manufacturer's parameter will ensure the high quality of the medical art. So, the undergraduate and master training of biomedical engineering take place in consortium with the Nicolae Testemițanu University of Medicine and Pharmacy. If you discussed about dissemination and implementation of the health technology management in Moldova, it necessary to mention that the National Biomedical Center of the Technical University in collaboration with the Department of Microelectronic and Biomedical Engineering organized 6th International Conference of Nanotechnology and Biomedical Engineering. Also was organized the Health Technology Management Regional Workshop with the international participation with external partners from Germany during 3 years. Recently, with World Health Organization support online training courses for the responsibility for the purchase of medicine for pharmacists and of medical devices for bioengineers within public medical and sanitary institutions was organized by National Center of Biomedical Engineering. This center also supports the Conference of Technical University in the field, supports the students and doctoral students as well as the international students competition microelectronic system engineering named Sergio Rădăuțanu for the biomedical engineering profile. In the field of technology transfer and exchange of information on health technology management, I would like to mention that the organization of short courses in biomedical engineering for Turkmenistan was done 2 years ago, and the implementation of medical technology management, for example, expertise in Belarus and Turkmenistan also was done. Professor Șonte is invited guest professor for lecture in Belarus and Turkmenistan University. Last 3 years, we participated in the implementation of the Erasmus program, new project, in which participate University from Eastern Europe and Caucasus and Central Asia, and is about the instrument and goal for education process in medical health education. The Erasmus Spring Project 2019-2023, not 23. But who can benefit from good health technology management implementation? The result of management of the medical devices evaluation at the Moldovan medical institution level demonstrated the positive impact of in the efficient use of medical devices, the reduction of expenses for maintaining medical devices through adequate internal services in a timely manner, the increase of cost efficiency and safety of the medical art. Obviously, the implementation of health technology management has an enormous societal impact in that a wide range of health practitioners benefit from it, including health system planners, health technology policy makers, health care founders, technical health services and hospital manager, nursing manager, clinical and hospital engineering practitioners, clinical technologists, e-health, medical informatics practitioner, medical physicist, and radiographers. in both public and private sector, as well as non-governmental organizations and private hospitals. By this, I would like to thank you for the presence and find the time for hear them. And if there is a question, myself or Professor Schonka is ready to respond to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Muzugan. Now there are questions and comments, please. Professor Bonin.
Thank you, and Professor Schonka. I think this is an impressive presentation of the efforts over decades. Very specific question which continues somehow our discussion of yesterday and of today. In order to guarantee a sustainable development, in this case in biomedicine, it is needed to have a persistent support and okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. To have a persistent support in such spheres like finances and policy and personal questions. To the best of my knowledge, this part of a persistent support is not yet so widely understood and implemented as the understanding of the necessity of sustainable development in the society. What is your opinion? Can one expect here some positive changes because they are needed in order to guarantee a sustainable development? Thank you.
Eu ar vrea să spun că prima ce a fost cel mai greu, să schimbi mentalitatea acelor care lucrează în medicină. Deci ei au mentalitatea lor de ani de zile și ei, când am început asta, vreo 15 ani în urmă, ei nu primeau aceasta. Astăzi este o tendință în lume când echipa este formată din medic, bioinginer și asistent medical.
First of all, it is very difficult to educate of thinking of medical staff for necessity to support the engineering work in the medical hospital. And secondly, of course, secondly, of course, was necessary to decision-making person also understood the subject, especially in the field of human resources, in the field of biomedical engineering.
Al doilea moment care eu aș vrea să spun, toți uită numai că dispozitivul lucrează, dar trebuie să ne uităm la securitatea dispozitivului. Deci partea de securitate. Cât de veridică aceste dispozitive medicale. Și asta
Secondly, all people forget that the good result will be obtained only if pay more attention to working of medical devices, especially not only uses of medical devices, but also to the safety working of the device.
Al treilea moment care eu aș vrea să spun că, afară că noi am lucrat mult împreună și cu partea din Iași, dar aș vrea să spun că noi am adus la ceea că noi s-au micșorat esențial cheltuielile pe deservirea dispozitivelor medicale.
During implementation of health technology management, it's necessary to mention that such assistance minimize the expenses for the maintenance of medical devices.
Următorul moment, eu aș vrea să spun că la noi s-au deprins, au curat dispozitive medicale și asta e tot. Dispozitivul medical trebuie să lucreze. Dar sunt partea a doua de cheltuieli asupra dispozitivelor medicale, asta este mentenanța dispozitivelor medicale, consumabile și toate astea. Noi am învățat pe aici din Republica Moldova că 5-7% din costul dispozitivelor medicale trebuie să meargă la mentenanță, la toate astea.
And I don't know, maybe the last competition is that to educate the decision staff about the importance to pay a lot of the budget for the maintenance of devices, not only for the working today.
Și ca rezultat am format în spitalele mari departamente de inginerie clinică.
It was established in the biggest hospitals and special biomedical engineering department for sustainability of this process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Audience, are there other questions on this field? If not, then let's thank the speakers once again.
Deci, dragi colegi, noi am terminat sesiunile noastre, au fost 3 zile, am lucrat activ, deci vă mulțumesc la toți și sper că peste 2 ani să ne vedem iar aici în Chișinău cu ediția noastră care este. Vă doresc la toți sănătate, succes și 2025!
Yeah, it's a general. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for being here all 3 days, and Professor Shontia hopes very much that we will meet all together once again in 2 years on the next session of this conference. So, thank you very much. Yes, in 2025 is scheduled the next edition of this the conference of nanotechnology and biomedical engineering.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice trip.
Da, dacă cineva vrea să iei cuvânt, poftim. Thank you, dear Professor Shonte, dear colleagues. I really appreciate your patience, but in my opinion this was a forum of a good international level which provided a lot of ideas which are not only motivated but also motivating further research and further interactions, including with our colleagues from outside of the Republic of Moldova, and this is a good tradition. To be brief, I would like to very cordially appreciate the efforts, first of all, of Professor Victor Shonte, who invested part of his soul, not only of his time, in this cycle of conferences, and also his colleague Academician Tighineanu and his wonderful team headed by Sergei Ralian, who have just arrived. You can confirm or you can somehow other expresses that the organization was at such a wonderful level and everything went smoothly, And this nice organization led to very interesting perspectives in scientific exchanges. This is a mission of any conference, and this conference has successfully implemented its mission. I would like again to thank all of you, and I will intend it to our chair. Maybe still somebody wants to tell it, but I would like to conclude my statement with my wishes of good health and energy and new perspective, motion to Victor Shonte and to all other colleagues who presented us with such a beautiful days in Chișinău. Mulțumesc frumos!
Thank you very much! Eu aș vrea să mulțumesc echipii care m-a asistat și a lucrat împreună. Domnul Sergiu Railean, domnul Alexandru Silecov, domnul Monaico, domnul Băraniște și domnul Buțigan, care a vă doresc succese, sănătate și la mulți ani!
Maybe there is someone else in the room who would like to say some words.
Игорь, куда вы уходите? Я хочу что-то сказать. Да.
Dear colleagues, I want to tell some words about this conference. Of course, this conference held high level in the same conference in the world, because it's very interesting for us. We are delegation from Ukraine, from Kharkov, and we have possibility to contact with different countries, different scientists, and have a very interesting idea which they hear on the section. Of course, I hope that the next conference will be maybe in 2025. Our delegation is very hardly, because now in my town war, and I hope that it will be finished, and of course our delegation was a big. And thank you very much for Professor Shonte and his team for good organization and the very interesting days which we spent in the Chișinău. I hope that it's maybe very interesting contact will be continue between our team and scientists which are now in this conference. Thank you very much for Professor Shonte and his team. Is a very good people, which of course big emotion for my team. I wish you good health, first of all, for Professor Shonte and his team, for always all of you and your family. And of course, it's very hardly for our work in the future and interesting meeting in the future. Thank you very much.
And so, to closing remarks, Professor Tighineanu, the chairman of the conference.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The time is running very, very fast. It looks like yesterday we opened the conference, now we should close already. I would like to note that there were days of very fruitful exchange of information, discussions. Some people succeeded to make some plans for future collaborative interaction. But the most important is that in spite of difficulties, and obvious difficulties, we have a war just in the neighboring country. And by the way, some our colleagues just were afraid and decided to not come to Moldova. I would like to thank all of you because you, in spite of difficulties, came to attend the conference, contributed to the success of this conference. So professors from many, many countries, even from overseas, professors from the United States of America, from Japan, and so on. And especially I would like to thank professors, experts from Ukraine, because in spite of the fact that Ukraine is a neighboring country, but to travel from Ukraine and to Ukraine, you understand it's a risk, and in spite of this risk, so thank you, Professor, for your visit, for your attendance, for your contribution, and I think that we should continue this series of conferences. We started in 2011. Now, 12 years, during these 12 years, 6 conferences, 6 editions. The next one in 2025. And you know that on 25th of August, the Assembly of the United Nations approved a resolution according to which the years from 2024 until 2033 will be the decade of sciences for sustainable development. And of course, this is our decade of scientists, and I'm sure that in spite of challenges of our century, we will continue our scientific activity, we will collaborate, and we will enjoy this collaboration. And to enjoy the collaboration, we should meet. And the conference is the right place to meet, to discuss, to interact, and of course by joint efforts to find solutions to problems that we face in this century. Well, thank you so much. I wish you good health, good luck. Of course, I would like to thank people from the organizing committee who were here all the time, Professor Schott and many colleagues from the Technical University. They did a good job. And due to their job, we can celebrate the success of this conference and to say, like during Olympiads, goodbye until the next edition of the conference, 7th edition of the conference in 2025. Thank you.